I loved him, but he was my best friend's husband. The first time I realized I loved him, it was raining. Not the dramatic kind of rain that splits the sky open and demands attention. It was the quiet kind. The kind that lingers in the air like an apology. The kind that makes everything look softer than it really is. We were standing on the balcony of their apartment. Her apartment. His apartment. The place they had chosen together. The pale blue walls. The small potted herbs. She kept alive with impossible devotion. The wind chimes that sang. Whenever the world exhaled, she was inside, laughing on the phone with her mother. He was beside me. "Smells like autumn," he said, leaning on the railing. I nodded, pretending the chill in my chest was just the weather. "It's only September." He smiled at me. That soft, lopsided smile that never tried too hard. "You always argue with the seasons." "I just think they change too quickly." He looked at me then. Really looked at me. And something in his eyes felt too warm. Too steady. Too familiar. The wind lifted a strand of my hair across my face. And without thinking, without permission from the universe, he reached up and tucked it behind my ear. His fingers lingered. Just a second too long. That was when it happened. Not a thunderclap. Not a lightning strike. Just a quiet, terrible knowing. I loved him. And he was my best friend's husband. Her name is Alina. She has been my best friend since we were 16, and believed heartbreak only happened to other people. We shared notebooks and secrets and dreams that felt too big for our small hometown. She was the brave one. I was the careful one. She met him in college. I remember the day she called me. "I think I met the man I'm going to marry," she said, breathless. "You've known him for 3 days?" I laughed. 3 days is enough when you know. She was right. It had been enough. Their wedding was simple and full of light. I stood beside her in a pale lavender dress, holding her bouquet while she adjusted her veil. Her hands were shaking. "Do I look okay?" she whispered. "You look like someone about to be loved for the rest of her life," I told her. And I meant it. He cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. I remember thinking how rare it was for a man to cry without shame. How lucky she was. I never thought, standing there, that one day I would wish I had met him first. I hate myself for that thought. Even now. Even writing it in the quiet corners of my mind. It started slowly after they moved back to the city, and I became a regular fixture in their home. Friday dinners. Sunday movies. Random Tuesday nights where we'd sit on the floor eating takeout because the table was covered in Elena's work papers. He and I talked easily. Too easily. We both loved old records and black coffee, and walking at night when the streets were nearly empty. We both believed in the kind of love that didn't shout but stayed. Sometimes Alina would fall asleep on the couch between us, her head on his shoulder, her feet tucked under my thigh, and we would look at each other over her sleeping form, not speaking, just existing in that charged silence. Don't, I would tell myself. Don't imagine. Don't linger. Don't hope. Because hope is cruel when it has no right to exist. One evening, Alina had to stay late at work. He insisted on cooking dinner anyway. She'll be exhausted, he said, tying an apron around his waist. She won't want to think. I sat at the counter, watching him chop vegetables with quiet concentration. You take good care of her, I said. He paused for a fraction of a second. She takes good care of me. The kitchen light flickered softly against his profile. There was something tired in his eyes that I hadn't noticed before. Are you happy? I asked, the question slipping out before I could start it. He looked at me sharply. Not offended, just surprised. Of course I am. But his voice lacked something. Conviction, maybe. I felt the floor tilt slightly beneath me. Why would you ask that? I don't know. I swallowed. You just seem far away sometimes. He set the knife down. It's not her, he said quietly. If that's what you're thinking. I wasn't thinking anything. He gave me a look that told me. He knew I was lying. We stood there in the small kitchen, filled with the scent of garlic and something unsaid. Then, he did something unforgivable. He stepped closer. Not enough to touch, just enough for the air to change. You see too much, he murmured. My heart began pounding so loudly, I was sure he could hear it. You don't see enough, I replied, though I didn't know what I meant. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Alina's voice, cheerful and tired. I'm home. We both stepped back at the same time, like criminals, like cowards. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every second. The way his eyes softened when I laughed. The way he noticed when I was quiet. The way silence between us felt like a secret neither of us had agreed to keep. But we're keeping anyway. I told myself it was nothing. Just proximity. Just familiarity. Just loneliness dressed up as longing. But love has a way of slipping into the spaces you don't guard. And I had left too many doors open. The rain that evening on the balcony wasn't the beginning. It was simply the moment I stopped pretending. He was looking at the city lights when he spoke again. You ever think about how different life would be if we made one different choice? My breath caught. All the time, I said. He nodded slowly. We're good, you know, he added. The three of us, like a fragile equation. Balanced, precarious, dangerous. Yes, I whispered. We were good. But good doesn't mean safe. Inside, Alina laughed again at something her mother had said. The sound drifted through the open door like a reminder. Like a warning. I looked at him one last time before going inside. And I knew. This was not going to end without breaking something. Maybe her? Maybe him. Maybe me. Probably all three. That realization settled into my bones like winter. After that night, I tried to pull away. I answered fewer messages. Declined a few dinner invitations. Told Alina I was overwhelmed with work, that I needed time alone. She believed me because she trusted me. She always trusted me. That was the worst part. Trust is such a fragile, holy thing. And I was walking around with muddy hands. One Saturday afternoon, she showed up at my apartment unannounced, holding a paper bag of pastries from the bakery we used to visit in high school. "You've been distant," she said, gently as she stepped inside. "And don't tell me it's work." "I know your work face." I forced a smile. "You drove all this way to interrogate me?" "I drove all this way because I miss you." Her words pierced deeper than any accusation could have. We sat on my couch, knees touching like they had 1,000 times before. She talked about a possible promotion, about repainting their bedroom, about how he'd been quieter lately, but insisted he was just tired. "He's always been the strong, silent type," she said with a small laugh. "Sometimes I wish he'd just say what he's thinking." I felt my chest tighten. If he did, everything would shatter. Marriage is complicated. I offered carefully. She studied me for a moment. "Are you okay?" The question lingered between us. I wanted to confess. Not about him. Never about him. But about the way my heart felt like it was rotting from the inside out. Instead, I nodded. "I'm fine." 'Cause she leaned her head on my shoulder. "Promise me something."
Duh.
"What?" "That no matter what happens in life, we stay like this. You and me." "Okay." My throat burned. "Okay," I whispered. I broke that promise the moment I felt the warmth of her husband's fingers on my skin. A week later, it happened. The line we had been dancing around for months finally snapped. Alina was out of town for a work conference. She had asked me to stop by their apartment to feed the cat and water the plants. I almost said no. I should have said no. But I didn't. The apartment felt different without her. Quieter. Larger. Like it was holding its breath. I was kneeling by the balcony door, adjusting the herbs, when I heard the front door open. "I thought you weren't coming back until tomorrow," I called, assuming it was her. "It got canceled." His voice. I froze. He stepped into the living room, loosening his tie. He looked exhausted. And something else. Raw. "You're here," he said, softer now. "Just feeding the cat." We stood there, the silence heavier than ever before. "She told me you've been distant," he said. "I've been busy." "You're lying." I looked up at him then, tired of pretending. "Yes," I admitted. He exhaled slowly, like he had been waiting for that. "Why?" The question trembled in the space between us. "Because I love you. Because I can't breathe when you're near me. Because every time she kisses you in front of me, I feel like I'm disappearing." But I couldn't say any of that. "You know why," I said instead. His jaw tightened. "Say it." I shook my head. "No." He took a step forward. "Do you think I haven't noticed?" he asked quietly. "The way you look at me. The way you pull away when I get too close. Do you think this is easy for me? The words struck me like a slap. Easy, I whispered. You're her husband. And you're her best friend. He shot back. Do you think that makes this simpler? My vision blurred. This shouldn't be happening. I know. Then make it stop. His eyes softened in a way that destroyed me. I've tried. Silence swallowed us whole. I should have walked out. Instead, I asked the question that would ruin everything. If you had met me first, would it have been different? The air left his lungs slowly. Yes. The honesty in that single word split my heart open. Yes. He repeated, barely audible. The world didn't end in that moment. There was no dramatic crash of thunder. Just the quiet collapse of something sacred. He reached for me then. Not like a thief. Not like a man stealing something forbidden. But like someone drowning. His hand cupped my face, trembling. We can't, I whispered, even as I leaned into his touch. I know. But neither of us moved away. When his lips touched mine, it felt less like fire and more like grief. Slow, careful, devastating. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times. In every version, it felt passionate, urgent. In reality, it felt like saying goodbye to the people we used to be. I pulled back first. Tears streamed down my face. We just destroyed her, I said. He looked wrecked. We don't have to tell her. The suggestion hung in the air like poison. That's worse. He closed his eyes. I don't want to lose you. You were never supposed to have me. The truth tasted bitter. Footsteps padded across the hardwood floor as the cat wandered between us. Unaware of the earthquake that had just cracked the foundation of its home. This can't happen again, I said, though my heart already doubted my strength. He nodded slowly. It won't. But the way he looked at me told another story entirely. I left before I could change my mind. Outside, the sky was the same quiet gray as the night I realized I loved him. The rain began again, soft and merciless. And I understood something then. Loving him wasn't the worst thing I had done. Staying would be. So I told myself I would leave instead. Not just the apartment. Not just the room. Him. I avoided their calls for 3 days. Alina sent voice messages filled with mock outrage and dramatic sighs. Are you alive? Blink twice. If you've joined a secret monastery. I listened to her laughter through my phone speaker and pressed my fist to my mouth to keep from breaking apart. On the 4th day, she showed up at my door again. This time she wasn't holding pastries. She was holding concern. You're scaring me? She said the moment I opened the door. Did I do something? The question gutted me. No, I breathed too quickly. God, no. You didn't do anything. Then why are you disappearing? Because I kissed your husband. Because when he touches me, I forget my own name. Because I am not the person you think I am. I stepped aside and let her in. She walked through my apartment slowly, like she was searching for clues. Her eyes landed on the blanket draped over my couch, the untouched mug of coffee on the table, the drawn curtains. "You look tired," she said gently. "I haven't been sleeping well." She turned to face me fully. "Is it someone?" My heart stopped. "What?" "Is there someone you're not telling me about?" she asked, smiling softly. You get like this when you're falling for someone. You retreat into your head. If only she knew. "There's no one," I said, and the lie felt heavier than anything I had ever carried. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly, choosing to believe me. "I just don't want to lose you," she said quietly. "You already have." But I couldn't say it. Instead, I pulled her into a hug and held her tighter than I ever had before. She melted into me without hesitation. Trust. That word again. After she left, I sat on the floor for a long time staring at the wall. I could end this. I could confess everything and let the explosion happen now, instead of later. Or I could disappear, transfer offices, move cities, start over somewhere his voice didn't echo in every memory. My phone buzzed, his name. I didn't answer. It buzzed again, and again. Finally, I picked up. "Please don't hang up," he said immediately, his voice strained. "I shouldn't be talking to you." "I know." "Then, why are you calling?" A pause. I could hear him breathing. She knows something's wrong. Ice spread through my veins. "What do you mean?" "She asked me last night if I was unhappy." My chest tightened. "What did you say?" "The truth." Well, fear spiked. "You told her?" "No," he said quickly. "I told her I've been confused. That I feel like I'm losing parts of myself." And she just accepted that? She thinks it's work. Stress. She's trying to fix it. Though of course she was. Alina had always tried to fix broken things. Even when the broken thing was me. "You need to choose," I said, my voice barely steady. "Right now." He was silent. "Choose her?" I whispered. "Please?" "You're asking me to pretend?" "I'm asking you to honor your vows." His breath caught sharply. "That's cruel?" "No," I said, tears blurring my vision. "What we're doing is cruel." Another long silence. "I can't unfeel this," he admitted. "Neither can I." The honesty felt like stepping into freezing water. "But we can decide not to act on it." "Ed, what happens to us?" he asked. There it was. Us. There had never been an us. "Not really. We don't exist," I said softly. "We were never supposed to." He made a sound then. A quiet, broken exhale that nearly shattered my resolve. "I don't regret kissing you," he said. My knees gave out and I sank to the floor. "Don't say that. It's the only honest thing I have left." Honesty. Such a beautiful word for something that ruins lives. "I regret that I didn't meet you first," he continued. "Stop," I begged. "But I did meet her first. I loved her first. I built a life with her. That has to mean something. It does, I whispered. It means everything. And what are you? He asked. The question sliced through me. I swallowed. A mistake. The silence on the other end was immediate and heavy. You're not a mistake. I am in this story. He didn't argue, because we both knew it was true. That night, I packed a suitcase. Not much, just essentials. I wrote Elena a letter, not the whole truth. I wasn't brave enough for that. I told her I needed space, that I had been offered a temporary position in another city, that I loved her more than anything and would always be grateful for her friendship. The lies were softer this way, less destructive. I left the key to my apartment on the counter and walked out before I could change my mind. At the train station, the air felt thin. My phone buzzed once more. A message from him. Are you leaving? I stared at the words. Yes, yes, I typed back. Another pause. Then, if I asked you to stay, my heart screamed, but my fingers typed something else. You won't? A 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I won't. The train pulled in with a metallic groan. As I stepped inside, I realized something devastating. Leaving didn't feel like strength. It felt like loss. Through the window, the city blurred as the train began to move. I pressed my forehead against the glass and closed my eyes. Somewhere behind me, in an apartment filled with pale blue walls and wind chimes that sang in the wind, my best friend was probably making dinner. Her husband was probably standing beside her. And neither of them knew that something irreversible had already happened. I told myself distance would heal it. I told myself love fades when starved. But as the city disappeared behind me, one truth remained, steady and merciless. I wasn't leaving because I didn't love him. I was leaving because I did. The new city smelled different. Colder, sharper, like it had no patience for nostalgia. I rented a small apartment with white walls and windows that overlooked a brick building across the street. No balcony. No wind chimes. No shared memories stitched into the corners. At night, the silence was louder than anything I had ever known. I unpacked slowly, deliberately, as if taking my time would make it feel less like exile. Alina called the second night. I got your letter, she said, her voice trembling somewhere between hurt and confusion. A temporary position. Since when were you looking for one? I had rehearsed this conversation 100 times on the train. It happened quickly, I said. I didn't expect it either. You didn't even talk to me. The accusation was gentle, but it landed hard. No. Are you running from something? A yes. No. And she sighed softly. I could picture her pacing the kitchen, one hand tangled in her hair. Has been strange, she added after a moment. My heart thudded painfully. Strange how? Distant. Quieter than usual. I thought maybe it was just stress. But now you leaving like this. Her voice cracked slightly. It feels connected. Every instinct screamed at me to confess, to tear the truth open and let it bleed. But I saw her face in my mind. The devastation, the betrayal. "I promise it's not," I said, and I hated how easily the lie came now. A long pause. "I miss you already," she whispered. "I miss you too." When we hung up, I sat on the floor with my back against the wall and let the guilt wash over me. Days turned into weeks. I learned the rhythm of this new place. The coffee shop downstairs, where the barista never smiled, but always remembered my order. The park 3 blocks away, where old men played chess in silence. The way the sky turned a pale silver before snow. I buried myself in work. I answered emails at midnight, took on extra projects, stayed late until the office lights flickered off automatically. Exhaustion was easier than longing. But love is stubborn. It waits. His messages stopped after the first week. No dramatic goodbye. No last confession. Just silence. I told myself that was good. Necessary. Still, every time my phone buzzed, my chest tightened in reflex. One evening, as winter began pressing its cold palms against the windows, Elena called again. This time she wasn't trying to sound strong. "I think something's wrong," she said quietly. The fear in her voice made my stomach drop. "Is he okay?" "He says he is. But he barely looks at me anymore." A shaky breath. "It's like he's grieving something he won't name." My throat closed. "I asked him if there's someone else," she continued. The room felt suddenly too small. "And," he said no. The word hit me like a stone. Of course he did. Technically, he wasn't lying. I wasn't there. Silence stretched between us. "Do you think people can fall out of love suddenly?" she asked. I pressed my hand over my mouth to steady my breathing. "No," I said honestly. "Not suddenly." "Then what is this?" "It's me." "I don't know," I whispered. A soft, broken sound escaped her. "I keep thinking maybe if I try harder." "Love isn't something you earn," I said before I could stop myself. She went quiet at that. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked. The question shattered whatever composure I had left. "You did everything right," I said fiercely. "You are everything right." She started crying then, and I sat there miles away, listening to the sound of my best friend breaking, knowing I was the invisible fracture running through her marriage. After we hung up, I stared at my reflection in the dark window. I didn't recognize the woman looking back. Love is supposed to be beautiful. This felt like rot. Snow began to fall that night. Thick, heavy flakes that coated the city in silence. I walked to the park despite the cold, needing air, needing punishment. The benches were empty, the chess tables abandoned. I sat beneath a bare tree and let the snow gather in my hair. If I had never gone to their apartment that day, if I had never asked that question, if I had met him first, the what-ifs were endless and useless. My phone buzzed. My breath caught instantly. His name. For a moment, I considered letting it ring. but some wounds demand to be reopened. Hello. My voice barely carried. She knows, he said. The world seemed to tilt. What? She doesn't know details. But she knows it's you. Ice flooded my veins. How? I don't know. Maybe she saw it in the way I look at you. Maybe she always did. I closed my eyes, snow melting against my skin. What did you say? The truth. The word rang in my ears. All of it. No, he admitted. Not about the kiss, but about the feelings. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. And she asked me if I love you. I couldn't breathe. What did you say? I whispered. A pause. Then, quietly, yes. The snow kept falling, soft, relentless. And you? He asked. The question felt almost cruel. You already know, I said. Yes. He breathed. Somewhere on the other end of the city, my best friend was probably sitting on the edge of her bed, trying to piece together the shape of her life as it unraveled. What happens now? I asked. I don't know, he said honestly. She asked me to choose. The word echoed painfully. Choose. And my voice trembled. I told her I need time. Time. As if time could undo what we had done. She deserves certainty, I said. I know. Then, give it to her. He was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. I never wanted to hurt her, he finally said. Neither did I. But I can't pretend I don't love you. The confession hung heavy in the cold air. Tears mixed with melting snow on my cheeks. This isn't a love story, I whispered. No, he agreed. It isn't. It was something far messier, something that left casualties. In the distance, church bells began to ring, muffled by snow. I have to go, I said. Will you come back? He asked. The question carved through me. I looked up at the dark sky, at the snow-covered city that still felt foreign, at the empty bench beside me. No, I said softly. And this time, I wasn't lying. He didn't argue. For a moment, I thought he might fight for it. Fight for me, for us, for the reckless, impossible thing that had grown between us like ivy through cracked stone. But he didn't. I understand, he said instead. The understanding in his voice hurt more than anger would have. We stayed on the line, breathing into the same silence, separated by miles and choices that could not be undone. I'm sorry, he whispered. So am I. And then the call ended. Just like that, no dramatic final words, no promises, just quiet. The snow kept falling long after I left the park. It covered my footprints. By the time I reached my apartment, erasing evidence that I had ever been there at all. I stood in the doorway for a long time before turning on the light. The room felt the same as it had the day I arrived. Empty. Temporary. Safe. I sank onto the floor and let myself cry the way I hadn't allowed in months. Not the restrained tears of guilt or longing, but grief. Grief for a friendship I had cracked beyond repair. Grief for a love that had no place to live. Grief for the version of myself who had once believed loyalty was unbreakable. Weeks passed. Elena didn't call. I didn't either. I wanted to give her space, but if I was honest, I was afraid. Afraid of hearing the finality in her voice. Afraid of hearing nothing at all. One evening, as winter began loosening its grip on the city, my phone lit up with her name. My hands trembled as I answered. "Hi," I said carefully. She didn't say my name. "I asked him to leave," she said. The words landed like a dull blade. I closed my eyes. I couldn't compete with a ghost. She continued, her voice steady in a way that frightened me. "You weren't even there anymore, and he still chose you in his heart." With tears burned behind my eyes. "No. Don't," she said softly. Not cruelly, just tired. "Please don't explain." There was no anger in her tone. That somehow hurt the most. "I keep replaying everything," she went on. "The dinners. The way you two would look at each other when you thought I wasn't paying attention." My breath caught. "I trusted you," she whispered. The sentence shattered something final inside me. "I know," I said, my voice breaking. "I know." Silence filled the space between us, thick with everything unsaid. "I don't hate you," she said after a while. "I didn't expect that." "I wish you did," I admitted. "I tried," she replied. "It would have been easier." A small, broken laugh escaped her. "I just keep thinking if you had told me sooner. If either of you had." "I was afraid," I said. "Of what?" "Of losing you." Another long pause. "You lost me anyway." There it was. Not shouted. Not thrown like a weapon. Just stated as fact. And facts are heavier than accusations. "I hope he makes you happy," she said quietly. The assumption pierced me. "I'm not with him," I said. "What?" I told him no. Her breathing shifted. "I left because I loved him," I explained, forcing the truth into the open. "I stayed away because I loved you more." The words trembled, fragile and late. She didn't respond immediately. "I don't know what to do with that," she said finally. "You don't have to do anything," I whispered. "You don't owe me forgiveness." Outside my window, the snow had begun to melt, water dripping steadily from rooftops. "He's moving to another city," she said after a moment. "Says he needs to figure out who he is without either of us." The irony was almost cruel. 3 people. 3 separate directions. "I never wanted to break your life," I said. "I know," she replied, and I believed she meant it. That somehow made the loss sharper. "I need time," she added. "Maybe one day we'll find our way back to something. But it won't be what it was." It couldn't be. Some fractures never disappear. They just become part of the structure. "I'll always love you," I said. She exhaled softly. "I know." The call ended gently. No slammed doors. No final declarations. Just the quiet acceptance that some things cannot be repaired. Spring arrived slowly. The city softened. Trees began to bud. The air carried something almost hopeful. I stayed. I built a routine that didn't revolve around memories. I stopped checking my phone every hour. I stopped imagining alternate timelines, where I met him first, where Alina never fell in love with him, where none of this happened. Those timelines were illusions. The real one was enough. Months later, I received a letter. Not a message. A letter. His handwriting was unmistakable. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time before opening it. He wrote that he was leaving the country, that he had taken a job overseas. That distance felt like the only honest consequence. He didn't ask me to join him. He didn't say he was still in love with me. He only wrote one thing that stayed with me. Long after I folded the paper back along its creases. Loving you taught me that love alone is not enough. I placed the letter in a drawer and closed it. Some loves are not meant to be lived, only survived. Years passed. The sharpness of it dulled, but it never disappeared entirely. Every now and then, when it rains softly in early autumn, I think of a balcony with pale blue walls and wind chimes singing in the wind. I think of the moment a hand brushed my hair away from my face. I think of the fragile equation we once were. The three of us. We loved, we failed, we chose. And in the end, love did not conquer anything. It simply revealed us. Flawed, human, and heartbreakingly mortal.